Stress reduction, I call it supercomputer programming. This is your supercomputer. Stress is such a huge, terrible thing that goes on. It's not talked about enough. We need some solutions. Here we are recording on Election Day here in the United States, November 3rd of 2020. Kind of a good time to talk about this, right? Reducing stress. And here we are in 2020, such a weird year, right? Just what happened? If you look back, it's like this just silliness and craziness. And I will be talking more about COVID-19 in future shows. I've done a bunch. We just have to wrap our head around this, and hopefully cooler minds will prevail. But let's talk about some strategies. And I do have to admit, many of my patients, if not most of my patients, at least stress is playing a role in the conditions that they're coming in with the office, if not being the number one thing. And I saw that with half a dozen patients today that I could say that their condition was definitely due to mental and emotional activities that's going on in between their ears that's causing all of their physical disorders. No doubt about it. So 3 takeaways from our talk today. We have one true freedom in our life. It doesn't matter where we live, the circumstances that we're in, whether they're wonderful and amazing, or if they're terrible, or if we're living in a country with an oppressive government, or it doesn't matter what the situation is. We have one true freedom in life, and that is the choice, the ability to choose our thoughts. We can choose the way that we think about anything. Terrible circumstances, we're going to get into this as we roll along here. We can still choose how we think about that, how we react to it, what we're going to focus on. Those are our choices. That is one freedom that can never be taken away, our ability to choose our thoughts. Guard the gateway. I like this. This is Jim Rohn. He says, always guard the gateway into your mind, meaning guard what goes in, even if you think it's not affecting you, like social media, like the media, like whatever that information is that's going in. It is affecting you. You have to guard the gateway into your mind. And lastly, if you learn some things and you may see improvements in your life, I think it's our duties to help other people, serve other people, inspire others to help them to be the best version of themselves. So if you learn some things here, just share it. And I think that that's a good idea. Okay. Before I talk about communication, I came across today as I was preparing a great article written by the comedian Dave Barry. Now, Dave Barry is 73 years old. I just looked him up. And the title of this was 25 Things I Learned in 50 Years. So he wrote this when he was 50. He's now 73, so that means that this was 23 years ago. I had this sheet available into my office for patients. I won't go over every 25, but there's a couple in here. Again, this is Election Day in 2020. And we also just converted back over to standard time from daylight savings time. One of the things that he wrote in here, number 2, you will never find anybody who can give you a clear and compelling reason why we observe daylight savings time. Number 4 in his list, the most valuable function performed by the federal government is entertainment. And number 8, the most powerful force in the universe is gossip. Dave Barry, that's a great list, the 25 things he learned in 50 years. You can just Google that and come up with it. It's really, really well done. So number one thing that you can realize when you're dealing with stress, when you're dealing with what's going on between your ears, when we're dealing with our monkey brain, if you will, is the communication with ourself. All the time. If you sit back and think about it, I like the term monkey brain. I think that's a great explanation of what's going on. The wheel is always turning, right? Even if I'm talking to you right now and you're listening, you're asking yourself questions faster than I can speak to you. So in between my words, you're wiggling in here. Is this making any sense? Is this going to be appropriate for me? How long is this show going to be? Is this going to be helpful? Should I pass this along to other people? Whatever it might be, your questions are being asked faster and faster by your supercomputer that I can even speak to you right now. So I believe that most important thing is the communication to yourself. We're going to talk about those strategies as we go along. How about a couple of definitions? What's a definition of stress? A stress is a self-induced, intangible fabrication of negativity. A self-induced intangible fabrication of negativity. Why do we say that it's a fabrication of negativity? Well, remember that our 3 million-year-old brain or 2,000-year-old brain, whatever your belief system is it evolved not to make you happy. It's evolved to help you live. Okay? Therefore, to live, you have to be in fear. You have to fear lots of things out there so you can survive. If you had no fear, you would just jump into everything. Think of a cat, a mother cat protecting the kittens. The kittens want to go explore. Mother cat brings them back in, right? Think about any animal. Think about bears and their cubs, the same thing. Mama bear, papa bear, whatever, they're there to reel them in because the curiosity of those baby animals is would get the best of them if they're not protected. Well, the same thing with the rest of us. If we didn't have that fear response, we would just try everything and go everywhere, right? Well, now, being the dominant species on the planet, we have a lot of those fears that we were pre-programmed in our DNA is not realistic any longer, but still the monkey brain is always going to be fearful, to look at the things from a negative standpoint, and that negativity is what slows us down and what causes this ongoing stress that we have. And I thought Tony Robbins did a great job in understanding that. If you look at the definition that I just said, the definition is fear. What's stress? Fear. Unrealistic fear is what it is. Unrealistic fear for a set of circumstances that's coming at us. Events happen in our lives and we immediately go to the negative, right? Well, we go to the negative because we ask questions. What is terrible about that situation that just happened? Well, the supercomputer just says, I can answer that for you. There's several terrible reasons why this terrible thing happened, and it's going to make you feel terrible. And then after you ask the question, you feel terrible because you asked the wrong question. If you change your question, if I say nothing else and you stop here and you never listen to me again, and all you take out of this is ask better questions. That's something that I learned from Tony Robbins at least 25 years ago. He said, just control your thoughts by asking better questions. If a situation comes to you and immediately you think that it's negative, ask a different question. Say, what about this could I learn from it? What would be a beneficial lesson that I could get from this? What could, one question is, one thing that a lot of us say when something negative happens, if you will, is this, someday we'll laugh about this. So Tony Robbins says, why wait? Laugh about it now, right? So asking better questions, you get better answers. If you also think about it from a standpoint, again, something that Tony Robbins says, he says, life is happening for us, not to us. Now, many of you that might be listening to this right now have had major, terrible things happen in your life. You could have circumstances that are unbelievably difficult. And you're saying, absolutely no way, that's wrong, I have these terrible things going on in my life, that is absolutely wrong. Where is the gift in this? More on that as we roll along here. There's going to be some perspective that I'm going to share with you. Here's the next definition, health. Health is a state of optimum physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease. Optimum physical, mental, and social well-being. Now that's out of Dolan's Medical Dictionary. I remember looking at that in graduate school 32 years ago. And I thought, that's a great definition of health, which is the opposite of stress and fear. It's optimum functioning systems. And you can get there by asking better questions. We'll get into that. Now, how impactful is this chronic stress? Not acute stress. We have to sprint down the street after something or whatever it is, some acute stress, or a car just missed us or something like that, right? Oh my gosh, okay. So this acute stress happens, 15 minutes later, it goes away. All animals have this stress response. The deer is feeding, sees the wolf, runs away. 10 minutes later, it's feeding again, forgot whatever happened. Chemicals go back to normal. That's completely fine. We're talking about the chronic drip, drip, drip of stress that happens to us over time, and that's where the problems arise. So putting this into perspective, if you just put into Google how many medical visits are related to stress, WebMD says 75 to 90% of medical visits. Journal of the American Medical Association, one of the top journals on the planet in 2013, says 60 to 80% of medical visits are due to stress. Huffington Post in 2013 says it costs just the United States $1 trillion chronic stress for medical visits. That was 7 years ago. It's probably more like $1.5 trillion now. One source of stress for some people is their job. Well, how many people are engaged in their job? If you look that up, a Gallup poll in 2017 said 30% of people in the United States are engaged in their job, which can mean that they're probably fulfilled and satisfied with their job, which means that 70% of people are not. So 70% of people are not fulfilled by their job. And look up Simon Sinek's stuff. Simon Sinek. If you haven't seen his stuff, oh my goodness. It is so good, and he talks about creating, he's basically built a huge enterprise, and appropriately so, on creating better work environments by having managers and bosses and so forth, creating an atmosphere. And Simon Sinek's goal is that people wake up inspired to go to work, safe while they're there, and fulfilled when they go home. Wouldn't that be something if we could do that in most cases across the country? I think that's great by Simon Sinek. One way of stopping that negative conditioning, that fear conditioning, is to turn off the media, turn off the poison, many say, turn off the media. Now, I'm not saying be ignorant of all things going around you, I'm not saying that, but turning on the TV set or the radio or whatever, and just having it droning all day long with all this negativity. And remember, the idea with media is to keep you listening. They need to sell stuff. They need to keep you listening. I am talking to you right now, hopefully giving you something that might be inspiring to help you, because I want you to continue listening as well. But with media, they want to keep you listening. And I think arguably a lot of it is shock and awe, right? As opposed to having inspiring, heart-wrenching, loving, gratitude-filled, fulfilling type of programs. And there's some of that out there for sure, but a lot of the mainstream news outlets in particular is a little bit different than that, I think. And I think I'm right there. I think I'm right. Here's a quote. Here's something that we could spend hours just talking about, this one word: forgiveness. Forgiveness. And forgiveness in all aspects of your life. Forgiving yourself, forgiving people that may have harmed you, or at least our perception has harmed us, forgiving of negative events, forgiving everything in our lives. And you'll hear about this with Oprah and Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn and Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and whoever it is, which I'm going to touch on in a couple of minutes. But they'll all talk about forgiveness. Listen, forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. I will say that again, because that's exactly what Oprah said when Wayne Dyer was on Oprah's show, and Wayne Dyer said that to Oprah, and Oprah said, "Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Say it again." And Wayne Dyer said, "Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it." And I thought, wow, talking about getting rid of all the stuff in the past that we might have been dragging along and just reliving it, or as Earl Nightinale says, exhuming it over and over again so we relive that pain and suffering, right? I mean, what's pain without suffering, as Tony Robbins would explain to us, right? Suffering is running that same program over and over and over again. And I've done this, and many of you can think of yourself maybe doing it, or you know people in your life that just seem to have all of that negativity that they're dragging along because they haven't been helped yet, let's say, with a strategy of peeling themselves away from those logs that they're dragging along with them, that they just keep exhuming all of this past in them. And it's time to really stretch out and give that forgiveness. And I've talked about this on the program in the past, and instead of sending hate and revenge to somebody, maybe we could send them love. Maybe we send them love and complete and total forgiveness. And I have worked and worked and worked and worked for years with this, with myself, and it really does help. It really does help. Life's too short. You don't know how long or short it's going to be. I could get hit by the bus tomorrow. Let's get going with this, right? Let's work this and peel ourselves away from these things. If I sometimes think for a moment that I'm having less than a perfect day, something that helps me is perspective. I like to put things in perspective. I like to remind myself that we live in the richest, freest country ever to be known in mankind's history. I like to be reminded, whatever the number is 2 or 3 billion people on the planet live on $2 or less per day, whatever that number is. And Tony Robbins tells us of that. And don't forget that. You know, if you're making minimum wage in this country, or if you make $25,000 or $30,000 a year, you are living like royalty compared to the vast amount of the population on the planet. And we live in the richest, freest country ever to be known in mankind's history. But we still find lots of reasons to complain, don't we? Even living in this rich, free country. Here's a couple of things for perspective that I keep in mind. One is Viktor Frankl, and I read his book, Me in Search for Meaning, and I just read that, I think it was last year in 2019. And here's one quote out of the book here, and I do recommend the book. It's not an easy read, because he will talk in detail of life in a concentration camp. So it's not an easy read. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And that's what I said earlier. The only freedom that all of us actually truly have is to choose what we think about, choose what we focus on, or as he said, choose our attitudes toward a set of circumstances. And I always think about, fortunately, most of us will never have to live in a concentration camp and exist through that and see those horrible things. But he came out, and he and many other Holocaust survivors became beautiful, gorgeous, amazing, love-filled, forgiveness-filled people for the rest of their lives, even though no one would ever blame them for having a terrible PTSD-filled, fearful, negative, angry, whatever kind of life. No one would ever blame them. But they chose to be beautiful, amazing people that lived purposeful lives moving forward. I always find inspiration from that. Also, the movie called Unbroken about Louis Zamperini, it's a World War II movie. The movie is not an easy watch either. There are accurate descriptions, I believe, of life in a prisoner of war camp. Okay, so he was an American airman, and they had to survive on a life raft in the Pacific. This is back in World War II, and then he was captured by the Japanese in a prisoner of war camp. Anyways, the reason I'm telling you this story is at the end of that movie, there was an interview of Louis Zamperini himself while he was still alive. He has since passed away, but it was an interview with him, and it was amazing. So even if you rented the movie and skipped the movie and watched the interview at the end, it would be so worth it. Here he is. He was interviewed on his life, and he lived a life like Viktor Frankl did after that experience. And he lived a loving, forgiving, a fulfilled life. He actually went back and tried to meet all of his captors in the prisoner of war camp back in Japan decades later, years later. I can't remember exactly where it was. And they met with him. And it was an amazing thing. They had little clips of them meeting afterward. And he showed them love and gave them forgiveness. And it was just amazing to see something like that. And we think we had a bad day because our coffee was cold. So I think perspective really helps us. Finding Joe the movie, I think, is one movie that you don't want to miss. And it puts a lot of perspective in there. And there's a lot of different people interviewed in that movie. Finding Joe the movie is a good one. My first mentor, I was still in graduate school, and this is in the late 80s, so again, about 31, 32 years ago. Dr. John Whitney, he was a chiropractor, he's now since passed away. Dr. Whitney was helping transition us from being students and bookworms into being doctors for caring people, taking care of people, and having good bedside manners and paying attention to the people in front of us. And he had a great gift in doing that. But he introduced me to the first personal development person that I listened to, which was Earl Nightingale. So I still have a CD set, which at the time was a cassette series of Earl Nightingale. And I suggest this. So go to YouTube, put in The Strangest Secret 1950. The Strangest Secret 1950 by Earl Nightingale. And don't miss that. Try to find the one that's a little bit longer, and his wife, Earl Nightingale's wife, will introduce the segment to you, and it's like 35, 40 minutes long, something like that. Don't miss that. Earl Nightingale, great stuff. Of course, Tony Robbins, I've already referenced him many, many times, and so after Earl Nightingale, and I found my way into Jim Rohn and some other people, And then I found my way to Tony Robbins, and I've been reading his stuff and experiencing his stuff for at least 25 years, could be 27 years now. Tony Robbins, you might think of him as a master motivator, and he will tell you time and again, he's like, no, I don't do that. I consider him a human behavior specialist, because he's going to teach you ways of taking control of your emotions and your thoughts and steer your life in a better way, whether you want a better relationship, or be a better parent, or have a better life, or find a purposeful career, or whatever it might be, better physical and mental and social and emotional health, whatever it might be. Study Tony Robbins stuff. Go to YouTube, experience out his stuff. Go to his website. His website is loaded with podcasts and videos and blogs and vlogs and all kinds of stuff that can help you understand some of the things that we're touching on now. He calls himself the why guy. Why do we do the things that we do? And it's very worth doing that. Now, if you see the movie on him, which is a bit of a documentary in one of his programs called I Am Not Your Guru, I Am Not Your Guru. It's on Netflix. Be warned, it's generously sprinkled with profanities. So just keep that in mind in case that is something sensitive for you or it needs to be age appropriate. I found the movie very helpful, and I think you will as well. Dr. Wayne Dyer, if you want to get into his material, drwaynedyer.com. He has passed away, but his website is still up. The movie called The Shift is a great movie. It's fairly short. I think it's about an hour, but I don't think there's any profanities in it, and there's a couple of adult themes, but you might want to watch it before you show it to your children. But I think it would be very suitable for the family. I read his book, Living the Wisdom of the Tao, another great book, and he has several books and programs out there, and he will help you with all of these perspectives and so forth. Got it? Okay. Now, another thing that will help a lot of you is meditation. Meditation is a way of taking direction into your emotions. Okay. Now, it's interesting. Some people will say, if you're not that busy, try to meditate, say, 15 or 20 minutes a day. If you're a busy person, then meditate an hour a day, right? So that's what some people are saying, meditation is so important. I'm not going to get into that much more here, but here's a variety of sources for you regarding meditation. You can look at, my favorite is Dr. Joe Dispenza. I just took a 90-day online series of his on his website, and it was totally fantastic. And I can't wait for live events to start happening again, because I will definitely find my way to one of his programs. But he's got great books. I've been through a couple of his books and so forth. Dr. Andrew Weil has written a bunch of different books. One of them is Spontaneous Happiness. He talks about some of his issues that he's had and how he's found solutions to those. Emily Fletcher, Pima Chodron, Tara Brock, Centers for MindBodyMedicine.org. You could look at these resources and begin to learn strategies on meditation. And meditation can be as simple as you start with 1 minute per day. And it's just a way of stretching out your brain muscle. And your brain is like a muscle. And what you can do is start training your way of directing your focus. Now, I still have trouble with it. I was meditating this morning, and here I am in the meditation, and I find my brain drifting. Oh, I've got a lot to do today. I've got a show going on today. I've got patients to focus on. I've got this. What am I doing? And I bring myself back in, and that's the idea with the meditation. It's a continuous practice that you have a better way of taking control of your focus. Jim Rohn, by the way, was Tony Robbins' first mentor. Jim Rohn has passed away, but his website is up there. He's got great materials, and you can check out his stuff, and he's got a lot of stuff on YouTube as well. Now, Napoleon Hill, I like this as a reference because his most famous work is Think and Grow Rich. And I am going to highlight one word of that title, think, because I think that's what the book is about thinking and controlling your thinking. It's not about necessarily making, even in the subtitle it says how to make $1 million or something like that or whatever. But it's not a book about getting rich in the monetary sense. So you can also take that title and lop off the last word and just call it Think and Grow. I think that's what the book is about. I have read that book, I'm not kidding you, 20 times, more? I don't know. I've got the paperback, it's fallen apart, it's on my nightstand. It's just such a good book. I just like, again, always trying to program the brain with better stuff. Think and Grow. His website, naphill.org, is still up. Jeff Olson wrote a book called The Slight Edge. The Slight Edge. Great book, great recording, audiobook. See, I think I have the CD. Here's something that is free that's related to that. It's for teenagers. This is great now. This is great. Successfoundation.org. Go to that website, and it's a downloadable PDF. 176 pages, completely appropriate for teenagers. Great stuff. Definitely look into that. Seth Godin. Now, I have Seth Godin here on my stress reduction class, on my supercomputer programming class. Seth Godin, by the way, great material, wonderful website. Check out his stuff. The book that I read is called Linchpin. Linchpin. Now, linchpin, you could say you want to be the linchpin in business and be the executor of your company and whatever it is. I just think it's a linchpin in your own life. That's what I got out of it. I really think it's just, he's another one of those people that just shows us how to think differently. In his way of having, again, workplaces and employees and just co-workers mingle together in a better way, it just shows the importance of interpersonal relationships. I just love his stuff. The Aladdin Factor with Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen. Again, another way of just taking control of your brain, taking control of thoughts, enjoying your life better, having a more purposeful life. Eckhart Tolle is completely on the other end of the scale from an energy perspective, from a Tony Robbins, super energy, out there type of person, to Eckhart Tolle. I mean, you couldn't be on two ends of the scale, and they're saying very, very similar things. So Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now is the book that I've listened to, the audiobook. Louise Hay is another one. Louise Hay, she's got such an amazing website, and hayhouse.com is a publishing site as well, where she has pulled in a lot of different people with programs and videos and calendars and materials and audios and so on and so forth. So check that website. There's just a wonderful array of material there, so you can check out her stuff. Thich Nat Hahn, Buddhist monk, you can check out his material. Again, he would be on the Eckhart Tolle energy delivery system. They're all saying the same thing. They're all trying to just help us direct our minds and focus and asking better questions and so forth. plumvillage.org, you can see his stuff there. Les Brown, lesbrown.com. Many of you might be familiar with Les Brown. I love the book and saying that he has, shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you land among the stars. And I think that's just such a nice way of thinking of it. Just go for it. Be the best person you can be the best employer you can be, the employee that you want to be, the family member, the partner, the citizen, the citizen of planet Earth, whatever it is, and just be the best version of yourself, and you'll land among the stars. I just think it's a great thing to think about. Lissa Rankin, medical physician, Mind Over Medicine, great book. She had chronic illnesses, could not be figured out from medical tests and so forth. She realized it was chronic stress, straightened that out. Now that's the focus of her career. Same thing with Dr. Kim Duramo. Kim Duramo, medical physician, chronic illnesses, nobody could figure it out. She realized, gee, it's chronic stress. She figured that out. Now that's the thrust of her rest of her career. Zig Ziglar, Ziglar.com, Born to Win, great program. I've listened to that. Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is a great way to go. And remember, I think it really comes down to one simple thing: directing our focus. Understanding that that is the one thing that is ultimately under our control. And by asking better questions is one of the quickest ways to get there. And reducing stress falls into that category of all of our wellness techniques and the quality of life, is reducing stress, having better nutrition for our amazing bodies, exercising to our abilities as best we can, taking care of our spine, getting better sleep. That's how we achieve better wellness and a better quality of life. I'm Dr. Scott Fuller.